Hello, everyone. My name is Deepa. I am a career acceleration coach. I come with a corporate experience of close to 2 decades. Right now, I'm helping corporate leaders accelerate their careers by breaking their glass ceilings, stepping into their worth, and maximizing their potential. Today is a very, very special day for me. It's a very special day because I'm launching something that I have been pondering about for the last few months. This platform is going to be called Conversations Unplugged. Here, we are going to talk to people like you and me who have inspired me through their life experiences and journey. And in the season one of Conversations Unplugged, I have a very, very special guest. Her name is Daisy Varun. She's a L&D consultant. But more about her and how did I meet her and why season one is going to be only listening to Daisy and learning from her life experiences. So both of us are part of a community called She Mantra. She Mantra is a community of women which was founded in 2020 by Shilpa. And from when we started in 2020, right now we are 500 women across the globe working on very, very different aspects, mainly around consulting, training, entrepreneurship, solopreneur. So we have so many women here, and Daisy and I met on this platform. Now, we've had different conversations on different, very, very different topics. But what really inspired me to get Daisy here was her wisdom. So she is such a well-read person. She has so much of knowledge across such a diverse range of topics. And the way she clarifies and talks about the topics is just amazing. So every time I hear her, every time I listen to what she's saying, it's like, wow. I think there are more people out there who need to know that people like Daisy exist. And then there needs to be a platform that can share their stories with a larger audience so that they get inspired, they work on their roadblocks, and they create a life that they truly deserve to live. So that's my reason of getting Daisy on this platform. And we will know more about her life journey as we are continuing and as we're talking to her in season one. How many episodes in season one? I don't know. It depends on how many topics we want to cover. And then in season two, I will get different people. And if you are interested, you want to be on my platform, just reach out to me with a story and we will talk. All right, so let me now formally welcome Daisy onto this platform. Daisy, a very, very warm welcome to the season one of Conversations Unplugged. And I would love for you to start by telling a little bit about the work that you do and what have been some of your life experiences, life defining moments, which have made you the person that you are right now. So over to you.
Wow, thank you so much for making me the first guest on this platform. I'm already feeling so honored and so happy that you're finally starting this, because I remember we have been talking about starting something, some podcast, some interview, and it has been on between me and many Shrimantan. So this is the first one that's actually getting started. It's going on the floor, so I'm really happy about it. And in terms of what I do for work, it's like a आपने जो पहला ही सवाल पूछा है ना, the first question itself calls for a big answer, because what has made me who I am today is a whole journey of 47 years, and it was not an easy journey. So I don't know which one to answer first. What has made me me, or what do I do for work? I think what do I do for work is an easier one. So I am a corporate L&D consultant. That's my primary bread and butter. Then I'm an integrative energy healer. That's my second profession. Then I am a little bit, I started recently a little bit into acting, modeling. That's my third profession. I am a poet and writer. That I wouldn't call it my profession because I don't publish it that much, but I do have one poetry collection published and some other collections where, a few of my poems have been published with other poets. So broadly, what I do can be looked at in these four brackets. What has made me me is a huge one. So I don't know how to begin. I was born into a middle class family. My parents were born into an even economically weaker family. So the way in those days, the way I would hear the stories for my grandparents. So, mere Nana ji, from my mother's side, I'm telling you, because I grew up mostly on my mother's side, and soon you'll know how and why. But मेरे नाना जी सन 1903 में पैदा हुए थे और 1922 में कानपुर आ गए थे. So he moved to Kanpur, and he was the only matriculate from his entire village in Bulandshahr at that time. And Kanpur at that time used to be the Mumbai of this country, was the commercial hub of this country. And that's where he built his life with great difficulties, of course. And he had 9 children. In those days, it used to be like that. And the eldest was my mother. Interestingly, she was married to another man who had a similar story. His father, my paternal grandfather, again, was the only matriculate in his family in Etawah at that time. And similar story, came and settled in Kanpur. And he was a block development officer with the then government, which is like the British government in the early mid-40s. And of course, he continued. And so my parents were well educated, moved to the middle class bracket, but the mentality, you see, was pretty 19 whatever. So the first child they had was a daughter, my elder sister. Her name is Shakti. She's a beautiful girl. And when she was, I remember her from childhood. She was like, fair and pink cheeks, and she was very pretty. She was very beautiful. And she's only 1.5 years elder to me. So I must have been born when my elder sister was still pretty young. And now the story begins. So this was the context, but the story begins now that I was born as the second daughter in a family, and my mother did not want a second daughter. So she told the nurse right after delivery, when the child is wrapped, washed and wiped and wrapped and given back to the mother, that's when she decided she does not want the baby. And she told the nurse that I don't want this baby. I was born in Kanpur, Nawabganj hospital. So she said, किसी और माँ का बच्चा अगर मर गया हो पैदा होने में, and it was common at that time, delivery में काफी issues थे उस time, तो उसके पालने में डाल दो. She did not even touch me, is what I am told. So my mother, who gave birth to me, refused to accept me, did not touch me. And मेरी mother के साथ उनकी छोटी बहन बैठी हुई थी. Like I told you, my grandparents had 9 children. So छोटी बहन बैठी हुई थी. And उन्होंने nurse से मुझको ले लिया. She must have thought that, okay, right now Didi is upset, and she was expecting a boy, or फिर से लड़की हो गई, तो she's a little disheartened. So in due course of time she'll be okay. तो उन्होंने nurse से मुझे लिया और मेरी mother को बोला कि अरे तुम परेशान मत हो, मैं पाल लूंगी. And my Masi was not married at that time. She was 26 at that time. And my mother turned to her and said, now all this is stories which I got from my grandparents or, from neighbors or whatever. So of course, I was just born. I had no memory of what was going around me. But my mother said that, अब तुमने कह दिया है तो तुम ही पालना, मेरे पास वापस लेकर मत आना, because I'm not going to feed this girl. That's when my Masi realized कि ये थोड़ा वाकई खराब मूड में है. So she refused to feed me. I haven't been fed on my mother's breast milk at all. She refused to feed me. And eventually I landed up in my Nanaji's house with my Masi. And I grew up there. My Masi became my mother. And interestingly, again in 70s, it was very difficult to marry a woman who had already adopted a child. Abhi to bahut fashionable ho gaya na. Everybody said Ravina Tandon adopted, Sushmita Sen adopted. But I think my mother is like the original queen of adoption, because when she adopted me, ye log paida bhi nahi hue honge. So Sushmita ho gayi thi. She's my age group, maybe a few months older than me. But anyway, so she adopted me, and then she remained a spinster all her life, because there was no man worth his time who could marry a girl who already had a child adopted. So she remained a spinster. And I think a lot of this goes into making me who I am. Because when I grew up, my uncles, my mamas, especially my youngest mama, he made every attempt to bring me up like a boy. Mera naam bhi Monu Master घर में वो मुझे बुलाते थे. He would keep me in black shorts and black ganji and would call me Black Master. And he initiated me into all the games that boys used to play, gulli danda, kancha, patang udao, or all the rowdy stuff that boys do. I was the only girl in my school in Kendriya Vidyalaya Lucknow who was called प्रिंसिपल की खिड़की का शीशा तोड़ने के लिए गुल्ली डंडा से, बिकॉज मेरा निशाना इतना अच्छा था उस टाइम पर. By the time I was in school, I was like a champion of rowdiness. But at the same time, the upbringing in the house was such that खेल कूद तक तो ठीक है, उसके beyond आपकी तमीज, तहजीब, your way of talking, and also because my mother was a PhD in English. And she was very, very heavily influenced by multiple cultures because she had read so much, so much. I mean, आप मुझे well read and well researched कहते हो, तो मेरी mother उस ज़माने में she had a library. I can't even tell you how many, maybe 800, 900 books, 1,000 books in my
Wow.
house at that time, in those days. And she introduced me to books very young. So any gift I got from her was either a diary with a quote, which I used to get every New Year. I would get one from her because she was eventually she became a civil servant. तो उनको बहुत सारी डायरीज गिफ्ट में मिलती थी, उनका नाम छपा हुआ रहता था उनके डेजिग्नेशन के साथ. तो इतना सारा लोग गिफ्ट करते थे that she would distribute it eventually to everybody, and always write a quote on the first page of the diary for me. I remember some. The first one I remember is always remember, God is watching over. God is everywhere. He's watching over and he loves you. And so do I. Love mom. That's how it was signed. Another one I remember was learn to like things you get, or learn to get things you like. Love mom. So, this is how she would give diaries to me. So all her wisdom nuggets played a huge role in shaping who I am. And then in my initial school years, I was in Gorakhpur. So all my reading, writing started in Gorakhpur, and Gita Press was a huge thing at that time in Gorakhpur. And we used to get Gita Press books, Bal Sahitya, बच्चों की कहानियाँ. So either somebody would read them to me, or when I learned reading, वैसे उन्हीं रख के पढ़ना सीखते हैं ना. So तब से I have been reading Gita Press की कहानियाँ. So many of those stories were either spiritual in nature or motivational in nature, or something nice and interesting, or patriotic in nature. So I remember still वो pink color के cover के साथ आती थी, भारत की वीर बालिकाएं, भारत की वीरांगनाएं, भारत के वीर बालक, भारत के सेनानी, स्वतंत्रता सेनानी, भारत की स्वतंत्रता सेनानियां, मतलब even they would dedicate it to the women freedom fighters. So बहुत सारी कहानियां उसमें मैंने पढ़ी. So this is how my priming happened. So when you say well read, मुझे ऐसा नहीं लगता well read, because मेरे पास कोई choice नहीं थी, ना टीवी था ना फोन था. एक विविध भारती होता था जो शाम को 1 घंटे 2 घंटे घर पे चलता था. उसके अलावा you want friends, you have nothing but books. So that went into making who I am. Then another thing that really played a huge role in making me who I am is when we left Kanpur and came to Gorakhpur. It was just my mother, me, because initially my mother has a long journey. So she started as a clerk in RBI after her studies completed. During that period, she did her PhD. Once she got her PhD, she moved to Gorakhpur University as a lecturer. In the meantime, she actually, the year I was born, she had given UPSC exams, but she couldn't clear the medical. उनका एक आंख का कुछ problem था. She couldn't clear medical for IPS. तो उनको IRS मिल रहा था, Revenue Services, and she refused. She said नहीं मेरे को तो IPS करना है. And then she again tried, but a little later. इस बीच में उनको वो गोरखपुर में lectureship मिल गई, and she taught there for 5 years. Then she got into civil services, and this time she took whatever they gave her, because she knew that because of her eye she wouldn't get IPS, so she took Indian Railways accounting services. So that's how it was. That's her journey. So my journey is very closely knitted with hers. So when I was in Gorakhpur, she had to go to work. So where would she leave me? So मेरी सबसे छोटी मासी जो उस समय +2 करके निकली थी, और उन्हें भी यूनिवर्सिटी में पढ़ना था, कॉलेज में पढ़ना था, तो वो मम्मा के साथ गोरखपुर आ गई. And she became, so in my family I had 2 women, one playing the father figure, one playing the mom, and both were my masis. That played a huge part in my upbringing. Okay. Then what made me who I am? Then of course, since we were in a new city, we did not have relatives, friends, or anything, and we were given an accommodation first in the girls' hostel, and everybody was older than me. I was the only child in the entire hostel. Madam ki beti hai, madam ki beti hai. So I used to get a lot of attention and affection from all the didis around, but I was the only child, so I had no companion of my age. Then mom got an accommodation in the guest house, which again was filled with all the lecturers, and rarely any of them had families because they were in the guest house, and then by the time we made friends around and we got to know people around, I still couldn't get anybody my age group. So my childhood was a fairly lonely childhood. I would either sit with a book or sit sun gazing in the evening or play around with trees and flowers and butterflies, because that's all was left for me. That loneliness, or I wouldn't call it loneliness, I would call it that solitary upbringing, in a way, because everybody would go to work. I will either be pushed to a school or, would be left in the lawn to play by myself, or will be left with books. So this is what made me who I am. So my way of thinking was very, very uninfluenced in the beginning. And I would think what I would think. I would say what I would say. I would figure out my answers myself because there was nobody to answer me. So that made me who I am. If that helps you understand why I am always on a different tangent than the rest of the world, is because of that.
So thank you so much, Daisy, for sharing your life journey and experiences. And one thing that I have learned over the last 6-7 years that I've been in this profession of coaching and helping people move forward is our childhood definitely has an influence on who we become as we are growing up. And what you have just shared is so connected to that, and I can so relate to what has happened in your childhood. And now I understand the mystery behind you reading all the time and you so well researched, because your love for books emerged as a coping strategy, if I may say that, to the loneliness or not having friends your age wherever you went. And what you said was so important, that your thinking was not influenced as you were growing up. Now, that's a very powerful thought, because our entire childhood is shaped by our environment and the people around us. So, and now I know more of Daisy through your life story. So, my question to you is, are you still that person who enjoys, being with yourself, or spending not so much time with others, or just spending time with yourself, your books, or has that changed over a period of time?
I wouldn't say that I like this or that. I think I have grown up in a manner. I grew up in contradiction. So I was a girl, but I was always told to be the boy. Including, I still don't have my ears pierced. Do you know why my ears weren't pierced? क्योंकि लड़कों के कान नहीं चलाए जाते.
Wow.
So for me, it was a lot of contradiction. But at the same time, okay, so because it was all in the family, I knew who my mother is. I used to call her Badi Ma. I knew who my papa is. But for a young child, for a little child, it was very difficult for me to understand that the biology of it. And for me, Badi Ma, Papa were just like any other Mausi Mausa ji, Mama Mami ji, Chacha Chachi ji. So it is like, they were another part of my extended family. I never had that connection that one needs to have with their parents. That connection was with my mama and my Masi, Choti Masi. So for me, that was my complete family. And then something interesting happened where contradictions were such that they taught me how to live with this contradiction. So today, if you ask me whether you like to be alone or with people, I think I like both. I did have a solitary childhood, but that was only after coming from school. While in school, I was the same boisterous child. I was always, very, very welcome. I knew how to play all the badmashi games, so I was like the star in school always. So for me, it was, school ki ghanti baji, so it was like moving from one life to another. From a class of 30 people who go gaga over you, gush over you, and call you all over the place. Daisy, hamare saath khelo, Daisy, yahan chalo, Daisy, wahan chalo. And from there, you move into come back to a home which is absolutely one single room, empty guest house, one room, set tha. So it was a one room, small kitchen, washrooms. So there I am all alone till my parents come back home. So a neighbor would, I would stay with a neighbor's family till my Masi came from college, which was around an hour later or a half an hour later, whatever, I don't remember the time. And then we would both move into, and she would do her studies, I would do my study, and then evening was like a solitary evening. And khao piyo so jao. So, for me, the contrast was so interesting from the very beginning कि मुझे कभी समझ नहीं आया what is my real nature. I'm as much an extrovert as I'm an introvert. I'm as much a party goer as I'm a loner. I'm as much into talking to people, and I love talking to people. It's not that I don't like talking to people, but at the same time, I'm very comfortable in my quiet.
That's beautiful. So you're a lady of contradictions, enjoying anything that life, brings your
Has to
way, and
offer.
just
Yes,
making the most of what is coming up for you. So that's very interesting. What else do you think your childhood experiences have shaped you to be the person? So one was, now we understand how. Okay, so another thing that stands out for me is that we are always supported. I think a lot of us feel that we are not supported. At least I felt that some time back, and we don't have people. I have to do everything. I am the person who's facing all the struggles of life. But your story also shows that the universe has a plan. And if
always.
right, and if someone is not there for you, there will be someone else who will step in and even give you even more love, affection,
Even
or
more.
whatever
Yes.
you want and deserve and have. So just having that trust makes a lot of difference. What do you think?
Absolutely. And interestingly, I never had to think about these things because for me, it was a given. For me, an extended family was a given. For me, it was growing up with 3 mamas and 6 masis was a given. So, 5 masis was a given. So, मुझसे जब लोग कहते हैं कि लाइफ में स्ट्रगल है, मुझे समझ में नहीं आता है क्या स्ट्रगल है, बिकॉज दैट्स कॉल्ड लिविंग. सांस लेना भी स्ट्रगल है ऐसे तो देखो तो.
Yeah.
But this is living. This is what life is. These experiences are what make you who you are. Is how I can articulate it today. But even then, when neighbors would look at me, and I was very small, 1.5, 2 years old, when I would go walking around the whole. And in those days, I grew up in a typical mohalla living. तो हम घर से सुबह तैयार करके बाबूजी बना के निकाल दिए जाते थे घर से खेलने के लिए.
That is
किसके
true.
घर में नाश्ता कर रहे हैं, किसके घर में लंच कर रहे हैं, शाम तक कहाँ सो, दोपहर में किसके घर में सो गए, शाम को आके घर में डिनर करते थे शायद मेरे ख्याल से. So I was that loved a child in my mohalla. But at the same time, आप मामा के बहुत दोस्त थे तो सब मुझे कंधों पे बिठा के घुमाते थे. I was the लाडो of the mohalla. But at the same time, their mothers would say, "अरे बेचारी बिन माँ की बच्ची." And for me, it was, what does that even mean? बिन माँ की बच्ची, मेरी मम्मा तो है, दिखाई नहीं दे रहा क्या इन लोग को. I think I understood the story a little bit after going to school when people would say, "What's your father's name?" So I will give them my father's name because I was taught this is your father's name. Okay, fair enough. So why is your father's surname different from your mother's surname? Now that's a question I had no answer to. Why don't you use your father's surname? I had no answer to. Why does your father not? So I would tell them my mother is not married. How come your mother is not married and you have a father and you are born to a father when she is not married? And all of that was, I had to deal with all of that when I was 2.5 years of age. Because that's the first school that I went to. And as I grew up, these questions started getting complicated. शुरू में तो समझ नहीं आते थे, जब समझ आने लगे तो और complicated लगता था कि इनको क्या जवाब दें, मुझे तो आंसर पता है, but how do I explain it to them? So much so that once we were transferred from Lucknow to Allahabad, and girls wanted, people try to know each other, and what does your father do? And I was in 7th standard when I moved to Allahabad. I had a classmate named Sharmishta Ghoshal. Today she's here. She's very much here in NCR, and she's an HR with a big company. I think she's heading HR now. But I take her to be my first teacher. You know why? Because when she asked me about my parents, and I gave her the whole story, she said, "Why do you pity yourself so much?" And till that time, I did not know that and I still don't agree that I pitied myself, because that brought me back home, and I said, "Am I pitying myself? What am I pitying myself for?" It gave me such a huge churn, and that's when I understood, no, it's not me pitying myself, it's them pitying me. Because for them, they have a framework. That's what a family is. There's a father, there's a mother, they need to be married, they will then have an offspring, and that will be the ideal framework. And for a moment I felt, oh shit, it's not, and they're projecting that on me.
Yeah.
And that's when I understood that I'm not bound by that story of the world. Oh, poor world. And for the first time I realized that, that one statement of hers opened my world to me in a very different way. So it's not that I pitied myself, nor ever did I feel or understand that I'm pitying myself, but her statement showed me how others looked at me. Till then, I had not understood that. That's when I understood they look at me with pity.
Ah, okay.
And oh, poor them. And that brought me to pity them, that oh, poor them. They don't understand that there's so much more to life.
Yeah.
There's so much more to the construct that they've given themselves, and there's life that lies beyond that. Because for me, the story repeated, because when after me, my mother had twins. They died of some complication when they were 2 months, 3 months old, somewhere around that time they died. Then again, she gave a birth to a boy. That was her, bari jao, pehla ladka bachcha. And then she had another boy, and that boy was born with rickets.
Oh.
It's a disease where the bones start drying up and shriveling away. So she already had, and her babies happened very fast. Okay, none of us brothers and sisters have more than a year, 11 months, 12 months, 15 months between us. So we two are pretty many. Okay, so Didi, me, then two more who died, and then Babu, Balraj, and then Gopal, the one who was born with rickets, then Prashant, and then she died pregnant, by the way. So she was again in the she had a battery of kids. So the second one who was born with rickets, the second boy, sixth child who was born with rickets, she brought that boy back to my nani in the first 40 days when you're allowed to move.
Achha.
Right, for 40 days you're not allowed to move. When you're allowed to move, I think within the first month or the second month, she brought my brother back from Lucknow to Kanpur. And told my nani that, Bagu already bahut chota hai. Bagu was only 11 months when the second one was born. So she said, Bagu bahut chota hai, meri naukri bhi hai. She was working. So she was a working woman. So she said, I'm not able to take care of this child, so you please take care of this child. So when they were leaving, my father was a very different sort of a man. I still haven't understood him. So while leaving, he told my grandma, अम्मा ये बचेगा तो है नहीं, ये मर जाएगा तो आप इसका क्रियाक्रम कर देना, हमें मत बुलाना. And that's when my grandfather heard that, Nanaji heard that, and he felt very upset and angry about it, because this is the second time they were giving up on a child. And he was so upset about it. But दामाद जी हैं, दामाद जी को क्या बोल सकते हैं? So then he said, ये जी भी जाएगा ना प्रेम, तो हम नहीं बताएंगे, तुम इसे आज से मरा ही समझो. And that's when ये मेरे नाना जी की जिद हो गई थी कि ये बच्चा अगर बच भी गया तो ये अपने माँ बाप के पास वापस नहीं जाएगा. But then my nani gave everything to this boy, saved him, and he became one of the cutest, healthiest, chubbiest, chikuiest boy in our family. And when he was 5 years of age, 4+5, and he had to start going to school, and my nana ji was in a bad state. He was just about to go, or I think he was about to go. He called my mother. And said कि तुमने एक को तो पाल लिया है और तुम शादी अभी तक कर नहीं रही हो. It had been quite a while till then. So तुम शादी अभी तक तो कर नहीं रही हो, तो तुम इसको भी ले लो, क्योंकि मेरे जाने के बाद इसको कौन देखेगा, मैं और किसके भरोसे छोड़ के इसको जाऊं, और मैं अब चला जाऊं. So he knew when he was about to go. So he took a promise from my mother that she will take care of the other one also. So वो हमारे घर में ये story repeat हुई है ना, 2 बच्चों के adoption वाली. And that's when the logic was कि देखो उसको उसका भाई मिल जाएगा, they will become brother sister जोड़ी, and you will have a complete family. बेटा बेटी तुमको दोनों हो जाएगा, तो तुम शादी तो anyways नहीं करते. So she still is a spinster, she's unmarried. So तो वो उस तरह से मेरा भाई जो है वो घर आया. So for me, all of this shaped everything that that I am today. So I have seen so much in life. Struggle क्यों किसी चीज को आप बोलोगे? This is life. It will unfold the way it will unfold. Another thing I remember from my childhood, I wouldn't say that I wasn't influenced in the sense that I was influenced, but in a different way, because these instances influenced me. So this is what influenced me, that पेरेंट्स कहते हैं ना माँ बाप के लिए बच्चे सब कुछ होते हैं, तो मुझे ये बड़ा फेक स्टेटमेंट लगता है, क्योंकि मेरे माँ बाप ने तो 2 बच्चों को छोड़ दिया था ना. सो दिस इज लाइक हॉग वॉश आई वॉश फॉर मी. सो जितने मदरहुड स्टेटमेंट्स जिंदगी में लोग लेके जीते हैं ना, तो अननेसेसरी बिलीफ्स जो लोगों के होते हैं, वो मेरे बड़े बचपन में तोड़ दिए गए थे. तो मेरे बचपन में मेरी सारी फाउंडेशन इस बुरी तरह से हिला दी गई थी कि मुझे अपनी जड़ें खुद ही जमानी थी. I had to grow my own roots to find my own stability. And that's why I am so strong in my thinking. That's why I am so expansive in my belief system, because I can see things that people, उनका construct है. So when people say struggle, मुझे नहीं समझ में आता. I don't know what is struggle. When people say that, I have control over life, अरे तुम्हें नहीं पता, तुम सुबह उठोगे, तुम्हें नहीं पता. So so the sense of surrender that I have for life came very young, because I knew that if I had stayed with my parents, my life would have been different. Another thing that I understood very interestingly was at the age of 7. So my mother, I was in Gorakhpur at that time in Carmel Convent, 3rd standard. My mother came to school, and she asked for a leave to take me home. And she had to write an application, because that was the procedure. So she wrote the application saying her mother died. And my principal was shocked. She said, "You're sitting in front of me. What nonsense are you writing?" Sister Belina was her name. So she said, "No, she's my adopted daughter. Her real mother expired." And that's when my principal got to know that I'm an adopted child. Till then, nobody in my school knew. So then when I went home to my mother's funeral to Lucknow, everybody was like, "Hi, bichari bachchi, iski maa mar gayi, iski maa mar gayi." And I was thinking, what nonsense, meri maa ye बैठी है मेरे बगल में, what? ठीक है, बड़ी मम्मा मर गई, मुझे समझ में आ रहा है, बट मेरी माँ क्यों मर गई? मेरी माँ मेरे साथ बैठी है. And I'm 7 years of age. And that's when they lift the body and they take it, वो ले जाते हैं जब घर के बाहर, तो वो पीछे पीछे मेरी मम्मी फूल ऐसे डालते हुए विदा करते हुए चलते ना, और मैं चिल्ला के भागी, मेरी मम्मा को मत ले जाओ. And then somebody helped me and said, अरे अरे इसे अब समझ में आया. और मुझे तब समझ में आया कि इन्हें अब भी नहीं समझ में आया.
Oh.
They thought that I understood that it's my mother who has died, and they still did not understand that I did not run after the dead body. I ran after my mother, who was actually going, showering flowers on the dead body. तो मुझे दुनिया को ये समझाने में कि मेरी जिंदगी का वो कॉन्स्टेंट नहीं है, ये समझाने में at a very young age, I was just 7 years of age. I could not have to explain this to anybody as to why I ran after, मेरी मदर को मत ले, मेरी मम्मा को मत ले जाओ. आज तक लोग समझते हैं कि मुझे तब समझ में आया कि मेरे अडॉप्शन की स्टोरी क्या है, पर मेरे अडॉप्शन की स्टोरी मुझे और बहुत बचपन में समझ में आ चुकी थी. मेरी जिंदगी में क्या हो रहा है, मेरे पिता कहाँ हैं, मेरी माता की शादी क्यों नहीं हुई है, why aren't they married to each other. So it was a lot of ghajar pachar story of life that gave me so much clarity.
Yeah.
It was the commotion of life that gave me so much clarity, such clarity that today many a times when people talk to me, they're still not able to take my ease with my story. I was doing one of the ISAP's human processes labs. Not really ISAP, but people who had moved out from ISAPs had started replicating that as a workshop in Bangalore. I was attending that, and the same thing happened there. They were like, "Oh, why are you not accepting to your wounds?" I said, "I don't have wounds. I mean, if it is in your head that I should have wounds, is not just because it's in your head I'll have wounds. I don't have wounds. I had a loving, मतलब मुझे जितना प्यार मिला है बचपन में, मुझे लगता है 2 पेरेंट्स मिलके नहीं दे सकते थे, जो मुझे एक पूरे मोहल्ले ने मिलके दिया. So मेरे लिए कभी किसी चीज की कमी नहीं थी. I had no wounds whatsoever. So for me, this push and pull with the world, where they wanted me to have a troubled childhood, but actually I never had a troubled childhood, and who gave me a lot of clarity.
Yeah.
The more I understood their pity towards me, the more clarity I got towards who I am and what I think and what I feel and what I believe, and how pitiful it is that they don't see that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the chaos in your childhood actually pushed you to clarity, because sometimes the confusion, the chaos, and the misunderstandings, all of that forces to go deep within, and when we are asking questions to ourselves. So and a very, very good example for our audience, that we don't have to stay within a framework to live our life. Most of us have a timeline, most of us have a framework. We have been told what a good life means, what success means, and what a fulfilling, satisfying life would look like. And a majority of our life, we're pursuing those goals which we have heard from others, and that have absolutely no correlation to who we are or what success means to me. right? So your story, and thank you for being so honest, candid, and sharing your entire childhood, because that throws light on why conditioning happens, but how we can also not be a victim to the conditioning, how we can still stand out,
Yes.
be our own influence, learn from the right places, and then just go deeper within you to get answers. I think the answers, we keep saying, especially in our coaching environment, that the answer lies within us, but then are we looking for them is the question. So thank you so much, Daisy, for this inspiring and such an honest, authentic conversation, because this is what we are attempting to do here. Conversations Unplugged is all about authentic, real conversations, and I hope our audience is inspired. Next week, we'll delve a little bit more into what life means to you, what does fulfilling and purposeful life mean, and break a few myths there.
Sure.
All right. So thank you so much, everyone. Listen to this episode. Give us love. Like the episode. If you have questions for me or Daisy, just put them in the comments and we'll be happy to answer them for you. So thank you so much. Looking forward to talking to you again. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.